Hi everyone, and welcome to this video on trace precedents and trace dependence in Excel. Now the reason that you want to know about these options in Excel is that they allow us to understand the impact that cells have on the cell that we're looking at, or conversely, the impact that our current active cell has on other cells. So here we go, trace precedents. This pinpoints the cells that the active cell is impacted by through formulas. So for example, if we've got a VLOOKUP in our active cell, then using trace precedents will allow us to see those cells that form part of the VLOOKUP. Trace dependence, on the other hand, pinpoints the cells that the active cell impacts through formulas. So we might be able to understand, for example, if we change the information in the current cell, what impact will that have throughout the rest of our workbook? So these options are really useful for auditors, as well as anyone really that has to review Excel files. So let's have a look at these in practice. So here we go, I've got my workbook set up here, and on my first tab I've got some FX rates. So our two tables on here show FX rates for 2019 by month and then 2018 by month. And seeing as there's no other information on this tab, chances are these translation rates are going to have some sort of impact on the rest of the file. But how do we know what the impact is? So there's 5 other tabs, and 3 of those have got data on and 2 are just placeholders. And in those 3 tabs that have got data in, how do we know which cells are the ones that are affected by the information on this tab? So if I go to disclosure notes, for example, we can see that most of the information on this tab is compiled from formulas. Yep, most of those are through formulas. If I go to audited data, most of that stuff seems to be hard-coded, fine. And then sales data. Okay, all of that stuff seems to be hard-coded as well. But we don't really know, without going through each individual cell, what the FX rates, the information in the FX rates tab, how it affects the information in the remaining tabs. So what we can do, of course, is we can use trace precedents and trace dependence. So if I just click on any of the cells within the translation rates, so I just click on that one, I can now use trace dependence to find out what information in the rest of the workbook the information in these cells impact. So to get to trace dependence, I'll go into the formulas tab, which I'm currently on, and then in the formula auditing section on the ribbon, I'll go to trace dependence. Okay, now a little dotted lines come up with a table. Now that says to me that the information that's impacted by the FX rates information is on a different tab, so it's not on our current tab. So to find out where that information is, what I'll do is just double click on the dotted line. And then a go-to menu comes up with all of the cells and the workbook and the tab, which is impacted by the active cell that I've clicked on, which is cell D6 on the FX rates tab. So if I want to go to that information, then I'll just go to click on one of the items and then click OK. And then it takes me to the cell which is impacted by the information on the FX rates tab. Really nice and straightforward. Now, of course, if we want to do the reverse, let's say we just landed on this audited data tab, then what we might do is go, well, okay, I've gone through all the rest of the information on here, but I can see that when I go on the formula bar, that the information in column P, that has information coming from other parts of the workbook. So how can I find out which cells are part of this VLOOKUP formula? So what we can do, of course, we can press F2 while on our active cell. And then that will bring up the information. If part of the formula is in the current tab, then it will highlight the cells that are referenced explicitly in the formula. So we can see here that cell H2, for example, that's in purple. We can then match that through into the formula. Then we've got cell N2, that's in blue, and then cell O2, that's in red. And you can match those through to the colors within the VLOOKUP string within the formula bar. However, it doesn't then guide us to any information which is not on the current tab. So what we can use in this case is we can use trace precedents. So I'll just come out of the formula bar. I'm still in my active cell. I'll go to the formulas tab again and then go to trace precedents. Now, once again, it's come up with my dotted line. So I need to go to another part of the workbook. So what I'll do is I'll double click on the dotted line. And that tells me that the information that I need to go to is in the range B6 to D17 on the FX rate tab, or alternatively F6 to H17 on the FX rates tab. So I can just click on one of those and then click OK. And then that takes me back to the tab where the information is that impacts the cell that I clicked on. Last thing to do then is just to remove the arrows from the workbook. So all I need to do that is just go to remove arrows in the formula auditing bar. And then I'll need to do the same on the audited data tab. And there we go, trace precedence and trace dependence.